Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to this video. I'm Venkat and this is just me an open source channel. Right, in this video we are going to look at Istio service mesh. I've received lots of requests from viewers about using Istio in Kubernetes, which is service mesh. I've started doing videos on Istio and I'm already started recording various topics around Istio. So my next few videos, I'm not sure how many videos I'm going to do on Istio, but starting from this video, the next few videos will be around the Istio topic. So there you go. So this is the first of the Istio videos. Okay, so what is Istio? Istio is a service mesh. Why do we need it? Okay, so you've written your web application as a microservice, and there are multiple services. You've broken down the big monolithic application into multiple microservices, and that's okay if you've got like handful of microservices. But as you have increased the complexity of your application, and you've got loads of microservices dependent on each other, then it becomes increasingly difficult to do service discovery and inter-service communication and so on. So Istio is one of the service mesh architecture. It tries to ease out. It tries to make your life easier by adding a layer on top of your application. So some of the things you can do with Istio are traffic management. So the requests that are coming in, you can do routing policies. You can route the traffic based on many different criteria. So basically for traffic management, authentication between services, between your different microservices, access control, authorization, even secure communication between the microservices. So again, observability. So you can also use it to trace the requests going between different microservices in your application. You can monitor, you can use Grafana, and there's some other thing that I'll cover in the later video. Visualizing your service mesh, what's going on inside your application, where the requests are coming from, where the requests are going, what sort of access control, authorization, and so on. So you will be able to completely visualize your, that will give you more insight into your application. You can also do logging and so on. So service discovery, load balancing are other features. Though the important thing to use Istio, the main benefit is that it requires no change to your application code. If you want to do all the features that Istio provides yourself, you have to rewrite your application, and the complexity will grow. So Istio makes it easier to deploy the traffic management and all its features on top of your application. So you don't have to change your application. You just install Istio and then configure policies, whatever you need to do it, and there you go. That's it. You don't have to touch your application. You can bring your existing application, break down into multiple microservices, and then you can make use of Istio as a service mesh to interrelate your microservices. Okay, so that's a brief history or brief introduction of Istio. I could just dive straight into a hands-on demo to show this is how Istio works. But it's very important because it involves a lot of components. It's very important to understand the Istio architecture. So when it comes to troubleshooting or anything, you know which component is responsible for what part of it and so on. Okay, so this is a classic example. So consider an e-commerce website. It is split into multiple microservices. For example, these two are web front ends. So there is an orders page. When you visit a page, orders page, that order page is served by a microservice. And there's a reviews page. When you click a reviews on a product, it takes you to another microservice application. And there's this database as a separate microservice. So these are different microservices for your e-commerce website, and these intercommunicate with each other. So in a typical Kubernetes example, you would deploy that as a deployment with multiple pods for each of those microservices, and you create a service to expose that to other microservice or to the outside world outside of your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so that's the e-commerce website. If you were to use Istio in this existing architecture, in this application architecture, how would you do it? You don't have to change any of your pods, deployment, service, or anything. You can just go ahead with using what you've got. And so that's how Istio works. Okay, so you install a sidecar container or an NY proxy. So that gets deployed onto each of your microservice. So your service is not exposed by default. You don't expose your service, but all the traffic, all the requests the microservice gets uh, will be obtained, will be received by the sidecar. The sidecar sits in the front end as a front line. So it receives the requests and then it proxies the request to the backend services. And this is where you configure all your policies, authentication, authorization, traffic routing, and everything. So it's a completely different thing which you can configure. So you don't have to touch your application. You can bring your existing application. So that's how it actually works in simple terms. Let's look at the architecture for a while. Okay, so that's it looks big, it has got multiple components, but it's quite simple. Okay, so that's one of your microservice, and that's another microservice. So this is service A, that is service B. You've got pods running as a deployment with a certain number of replicas. You expose that as a service, and then when you deploy Istio on it, it will deploy a sidecar called a proxy onto each of the service. And we've got Pilot, Galley, Citadel, Mixer, and these are all components of Istio. For example, Mixer, you can use that as a telemetry provider, metrics provider. So it collects metrics, the proxy that you install, that gets installed on all your deployments. Um, Collects information about the service, and then it stores the service, stores all those metrics, policy checks, telemetry, any metrics in Mixer. Okay, so Pilot is the one that sends the configuration data to the proxy. So whenever you define a policy in Istio, so Pilot component is the one that's responsible to send that configuration to the proxy. And we've got Galley. Galley is the one that verifies or validates all the configuration, injecting configuration into different components and so on. Citadel is responsible for securing the connection between the microservices. You can use TLS certificates to encrypt the connection between the microservices and so on. So that's Citadel. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so let's try our first hands-on. So the first video is going to be how to install Istioctl in your Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I'm going to close this. I'm going to start a terminal. Okay, so I've got my Kubernetes cluster running kubectl get nodes. Okay, export kubectl get nodes. So I've got 3 nodes, 1 master node and 2 worker nodes. So I'm using a Kubernetes in Docker kind. I've done a video on that. So that's the cluster, Kubernetes cluster I'm using for this demo. And apart from having a Kubernetes cluster, I've done 3 other things. You need to install Helm and Tiller. Helm is the binary that you install on your local workstation. Tiller is the server-side component. I've done a video on getting started with Helm, so you have to follow that to get in Helm and Tiller installed. So Kubernetes cluster, Helm and Tiller. You don't need dynamic NFS provisioning, dynamic storage provisioning for this demo or for any of the videos I'm going to do in this series. But I've installed dynamic NFS provisioning. If I do kubectl get storage class, so I've got the managed NFS storage. That's the default storage class. So if I were to deploy any deployment or any application that needs a persistent volume gets automatically created based on dynamic NFS provisioner. And the final thing you need is a load balancing capability. Because I'm running it on a bare metal cluster, I can't go with any other solution. There are a handful of solutions. So the one I'm using is called MetalLB. I've also done a video on MetalLB, how to get load balancing working on your Kubernetes cluster. So you have to follow that as well if you want to follow along these demos that I'm going to do in this series. Okay, so kubectl get namespace. I've got the MetalLB system. So that's the namespace where all the MetalLB related components goes in. I've got the storage namespace for which all the NFS provisioning kind of resources goes in. So to follow along, the bare minimum, you need a Kubernetes cluster, Helm installed, and then a load balancing solution, for example, MetalLB. Okay, so the first thing is to install Istioctl, the command line. You need to install that on your host machine. We are not going to be using Istioctl command a lot, but the first step is to get that installed, because in the future we might need it to configure the traffic management and all those details. So it's good to get that installed now, and then we will look at how to install the Istio components onto our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, I'm going to start a browser. I'm going to search for install Istio in Kubernetes. Okay, so Istio installing on Kubernetes, that's from the istio.io docs. Okay, so if I click that one, what I'm going to do is go down downloading the release. So there's a simple command here that I'm going to copy and paste it here. So curl -l, and then it downloads an install script, and then we pass it to the shell. So this will download the Istioctl binary, and then you need to add that to your path. It also downloads the sample applications and everything. Okay, so let's see what it has done. cd to Istio, so that's the version we are using is 1.2.4. Okay, so I've logged into that one, and if I do ls bin, so Istioctl, so that's the binary you need. Either you can add the path for this location, present working directory is home Venkaten Istioctl, wherever you've downloaded. Under the bin directory is the Istioctl. Either you can add that path to your environment's path variable to have Istioctl in your command line, or you can move it to user local bin, which is what I prefer to do. Sudo move bin Istioctl to user local bin. Okay, so we've got Istioctl, and if you look at the samples, tree samples, so these are various samples that we can use for getting started guide. So I'll be using this one book info application that comes packaged here, that comes with different manifests to try out different concepts of Istio. So in my later videos, I'll be using this book info sample application to demonstrate you various features of Istio. Okay, so let's concentrate on this video, which is to get the Kubernetes Istio installed on Kubernetes. Okay, so that's done. And if I do Istioctl help, so that's Istioctl verify install. So the first command I'm going to do is I'm going to run Istioctl verify install. So that's gonna do some preliminary checks on your Kubernetes cluster to see if Istioctl can be installed in your cluster. Okay, so it has done some checks, and it can can initialize the Kubernetes client, it can query the Kubernetes API server, and Istio is compatible with the Kubernetes version 1.15. So it has found what version of Kubernetes we have installed, so which is 1.15.0. Istio existence, so it checks whether Istio is already installed or not. Istio will be installed in the Istio system namespace. Kubernetes setup can create necessary Kubernetes configuration. When you install Istio in Kubernetes, it's going to deploy a bunch of resources like namespace, role binding, CRDs, role, service account, service deployments, config map, a lot of things. Sidecar injector. Okay, install pre-check passed. The cluster is ready for Istio installation, so that's good. So it's always a good idea to check whether there is any problem by running this command. So that will tell you if you've got any problem or not. For example, Istio will be installed in the Istio system namespace. If I do kubectl create namespace Istio system, okay, Istio system is created namespace. And if I run Istioctl verify install, say it says error one occur, Istio cannot be installed because the Istio namespace is already in use. So that's the kind of thing that it will check. So it's always a good idea to check that. Kubectl delete namespace Istio system. Okay, so while it's getting deleted, let's go ahead and install that on the Kubernetes. So what we have done so far is just installed the Istioctl binary on our host machine on our local workstation, and we've downloaded the samples application and all the supporting documents. Okay, so if I scroll above, so there are a few different types of installation. If you're new to if you're new to Istio, and if you're just trying it out, there's a demo installation, custom installation with Helm. Because I've got Helm and Tiller installed, I'm going to go with the custom installation with Helm, and this is recommended for production use or for performance evaluation. So that sounds like a better option for me. So custom installation with Helm. Okay, in here I'm going to go with option 2 because I've got both Helm and Tiller. If you don't have Tiller, if you just have Helm, there is a Helm template command to install the Helm charts. So since we have Helm and Tiller, I'm going to go with this option. And the first two commands are okay. That's just installing Helm and Tiller on your cluster, which we've already got. And the actual command is this one, Helm install Kubernetes Helm Istio. So instead of copying it, I'm going to show you how to run it. So cd to Istio 1.2.4. So when you run the curl command, it would have created this directory and copied all the files. So I'm logging into that directory. So the command is helm install Kubernetes helm Istio init. Okay, Istio init minus minus name is Istio init minus minus namespace is Istio system. Okay, so that's the command that we are going to run. Maybe I should watch kubectl minus n Istio system get all. So okay, I need to initialize my kube config. Okay, so now, so no resource found because Istio system namespace is not there. Okay, let's try to do that. So there are two Helm charts to install. The first one is istio-init, and the second one is Istio. So the first one runs a few jobs to set up the environment, to install the custom resource definitions, and so on. Let's go ahead and install the first chart, Istio-init. Okay, so that's done. So as you can see here, it has created 3 jobs and a pod for each of the jobs. So that's the basic one that's setting up the needed things, the required things. It's kind of setting up your environment before you're running the actual Istio Helm chart. Okay, so that's container is getting created. So these are basically jobs. So I've done a video on cron jobs and jobs. If you want more information on that, you can watch that video as well. All right, the 3 jobs have been completed. You can see completions 1 of 1. And if you do Helm status Istio init, 3 config maps, 3 jobs, and 3 pods for each of those jobs, and they're all completed. So that's good. So now we can go ahead and install the second one. So that should have, let's verify this as well. So by installing that Helm chart or Helm files, it should have created 23 Istio CRDs, custom resource definitions. Let's go ahead and check that. kubectl get CRDs, grep for Istio. Okay, cool. So we have these custom resource definitions that has been deployed to our Kubernetes cluster. And if I do wc-l, you can see there are 23 custom resource definitions. So verify that all 23 Istio CRDs were committed to the Kubernetes API server. So that's done. We are good to go with the next command. So now we are going to install the actual Istio itself. Okay, kubectl create -f or sorry, Helm install Kubernetes Helm Istio --name is Istio --namespace. We are going to install this again in the same namespace, Istio system. Okay, so this is going to install lots of pods. As you can see down here, it's creating the container, and as you can see here, the components that we talked about in my little notes, There is the Citadel for secure communication between the microservices. There is Galley for validating the Istio configurations. Istio Ingress Gateway. So Ingress Gateway is a component by which you access your application. Like Nginx Ingress, we have an Ingress Gateway. So that's a custom resource definition that gets installed when you initiate the Helm. So if I to kubectl get CRDs, you should be able to see Nginx Ingress, virtual service, destination rules, gateway. Yeah, gateway start networking. So that's the Ingress gateway. That's the custom resource definition. So that's how you access your application. So you you install Istioctl on top of your application, and then you create a gateway for your application. So that's the way to access your application. Okay, Ingress Gateway, we've got Pilot, we've got Istio Policy, Sidecar, Telemetry. We've also got Prometheus Operator installed. So all of them are running except the Ingress Gateway. So let's give it a few more minutes. 0 of 1. Okay, so that's also running now. We are good to go. Okay, so let's do a quick verification. kubectl get pods minus n istio system. So all of them are good. kubectl get service minus n istio system. So we have these services: Citadel, Galley, Ingress Gateway, Policy, Sidecar, Telemetry, and Prometheus. Okay, so this one is interesting. Istio Ingress Gateway. So the type is load balancer. So it's because of this you need to have a load balancing solution installed on your Kubernetes cluster. If you don't, it's also possible to access the service using node port, but it would be easy for you if you can install a load balancing solution like MetalLB on your Kubernetes cluster. So the external IP does automatically assign an external IP on the range that I defined in my MetalLB configuration. So through that, you'll be accessing all your applications that are Istio enabled. Okay, so that's how you install Istio. And if you were to delete your Istio from your Kubernetes cluster, there are two commands: helm delete minus minus purge, helm delete minus minus purge Istio. So that's one command, and the other one is helm delete minus minus purge Istio init. So that's going to delete all your Istio and Istio dash init resources that has been deployed. Okay, so cool. So that's how we install Istio on your Kubernetes cluster. The requirements are Kubernetes cluster, Helm and Tiller installed, and MetalLB. If you want to follow along my videos in this series. Okay, so I don't want to drag this video. I just want to cut it here. This is just about a quick introduction to Istio Service Mesh and how to install the Istioctl binary and the Istioctl on your Kubernetes cluster. Right. In my next video, I'm going to deploy the sample application book info, and I'm going to go through what that application is actually and what are all the components and how we are going to test various features of Istio, keeping book info as an example for illustration. Right. Okay. So this one, you need to get this one right. So watch this video carefully and get the system right. And if you've got any questions or any issues setting up this environment, don't hesitate to leave me a comment. I'll be able to get back to you as early as possible. And all the other videos that I'm going to be doing will be based on this setup. So in my next video, let's see how to install the or deploy the book info application. Right. If you like this video, please share it with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.